Jake Tapper, I have not watched this yet, but what I did see is the New York Post posted about his interview with Piers Morgan. And so I decided to pull that up, and we're going to watch this with Piers Morgan right here. He's making the tour, to kind of promote his book. So he talks to Piers Morgan. So we're going to listen to Jake Tapper. I don't know if this is good, bad. I don't know. I expect Piers Morgan to kind of go in and call him out, but maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know.
One of the things that the book has successfully done is getting people, it's gotten Democrats to acknowledge the reality of what was going on 2023, 2024 in a way that it was not, we didn't take.
It's gotten you to acknowledge what was going on because you were completely ignoring all of that, Jake Tapper, just like the Democrats were. You were covering up too. So it's gotten you to acknowledge something that you knew was going on because let's be clear. Jake Tapper's a lot of things. He's not a stupid person. Jake Tapper knew exactly what was going on. He knew exactly what was going on. Anybody with a working brain knew exactly what was going on.
For granted that the premise would be accepted as quickly as it was.
Jake, I mean, look, you and I worked together at CNN. I've known you a long time. You're a fantastic journalist. It's a brilliant book by both of you. So, just my cards on the table. I loved it. But there's one line that just sprang out to me. Of all the lines, a lot of it is shocking. But this line on the decision to run against Trump, on page 85, a longtime Biden aide says he just had to win and then he could disappear for 4 years. He'd only have to show proof of life every once in a while. That is a kind of jaw-dropping line. When you read it, you can't unread it.
That's literally what happened in 2020, Piers. We've known this. This is exactly what they did in 2020. We watched it happen, and we were told that you're just lying about this. Hey, you're just lying about the Weekend at Bernie's memes, because we said like it's Weekend at Bernie's. They're just propping up a dead guy, and they're just putting him in front of a podium, and he's not Trump. That was the whole thing that Joe Biden was running on. He's not Donald Trump. You got to vote for this guy because he's not Donald Trump. But you can't leave your house to vote. So we need mail-in ballots. And, of course, none of that worked. So then we saw what happened in 2020, and all of a sudden, water main pipes start breaking, and they stop counting completely. Unprecedented. We've never seen anything like that. This happened already once. We watched it.
Because what they're basically saying is they were prepared to put a zombie back in the White House.
They already did,
who
Piers.
would have zero ability to do anything but show proof of life. And that person would be the leader of the free world, the president of the United States. I mean, it's truly jaw-dropping.
It's stunning to give credit where credit's due. Alex is the one who got that line. And when we say that almost all of the interviews we did for the book came after the election, that one line is the one exception. That came before the election. And I was stunned too, but I guess it really gets at the premise that so many of these Democrats accepted, which is only Joe Biden has ever beaten Donald Trump, one. Two,
no, he didn't.
Donald Trump has to be defeated because he's an existential threat to the
nation.
He didn't. And if you buy those two premises, then you can really justify almost anything, which is what the Democrats tried to do, even though the American people were watching and saying in all sorts of polls, we don't believe that this guy can do the job. But I agree with you. That was jaw-dropping to me as well.
What's extraordinary, Alex, to me, is I was writing columns for the New York Post. I was doing this show throughout that time. Much of it I was doing in London. I'm actually in Dubai at the moment in the Middle East, but I was in London for much of the time that I was writing these columns. So I thought it'd be quite amusing to go back and just check what I was writing in real time about your president from across the Atlantic, because it wasn't just something that was being picked up on by a few rogue people in America. I wrote a piece in July 2022. This was based on the Peter Baker dossier, which he produced. He was the chief White House correspondent of the New York Times, of course. And the dossier was, when you look back on it now, it is extraordinary, really, in its prescience. revealed that huge concerns about Biden shuffling when he walks, prompting concerns he'll trip on a wire. His speeches are flat and listless. He stumbles so often the staffers hold their breath to see if he can make it to the end without a gaffe. He regularly makes huge policy change announcements that are instantly walked back by the White House. He sometimes loses his train of thought.
How is this shocking to you? We literally watched this shit happen. Have you ever been out in public and you did something incredibly embarrassing and you got everybody looking at you and all you can do is just keep walking because you're like, I don't want to acknowledge anyone around me? That's what he fucking did. Look at it. He just like keeps walking. It's just like, fuck. Let me just keep walking. Oh, shit, man.
Summoning names. He appears momentarily confused. He called his vice president, President Harris. He mistook Iran for Ukraine. He referred to Senator John Mark Warner as John, mistaking him for a dead Republican senator. Mark Warner as John, I'm sorry, mistaking him for a dead Republican senator. He tumbles off stationary bikes. He stays out of public
view. We all saw this, Piers. We all witnessed this.
At night, and so on and so on. And I concluded in that piece, this is July 2022, so over 2 years before the election. I said, if his functionality continues to deteriorate at the rate it is doing now, then surely he, Biden, will render himself constitutionally unfit to serve as president. Towards the end of Reagan's presidency, his aides seriously considered whether he might have to be removed from office under the 25th Amendment disability clause. The time for that same conversation to be happening about Joe Biden might fast be approaching. Now, that is a British journalist writing that, albeit in the New York Post, in July 2022, based on a stunning report at the time. And when I read your book, I was just mindful of that period and what Peter Baker had written, what I'd written about it, the fallout and so on. It just defies comprehension that Biden was able to limp on, especially when I read all the additional stuff that you guys have found. He was able to limp on for another 2 and a bit years. But I've seen your defense, and it's been quite striking that your defense, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it appears to be that you had very little direct access to Biden yourself.
Is Piers really going to kiss up to Jake Tapper here? So a couple weeks ago, you had Piers had some woman on this blonde chick that I guess got canceled for saying the N-word, and then she like didn't apologize, and she became like a right-wing, influencer. I don't remember her name, but he had her on the show, and he acted all like, oh my God, you said the N-word. Oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Yet here you have Jake Tapper, who literally covered this up and lied for the Biden administration, and you're throwing him softballs.
And you were just deliberately, persistently misled by people at the White House about his condition. I'm not really sure what else somebody in your position can do. If you don't get the access, and Biden was obviously being hidden a lot from people, particularly people like you, it's very hard to see what you were supposed to have done.
So what our reporting revealed to us is that there were basically 2 Joe Bidens. There was the one that was perfectly serviceable, gave the State of the Union address in 2024. He was fine. He was old, but he was fine. And then there was this other non-functioning Joe Biden who would lose his train of thought midway through in a disturbing way, not be able to come up with the names of top aides or people he'd known for years, and everything we saw the night of the debate. And what we learned is that the non-functioning Joe Biden really started rearing his head around 2015 after the death of his son, Beau. And then
2015, but you didn't realize it until after the election. Because the truth is that if Biden wins the election, Jake Tapper never has this conversation because Jake Tapper's not interested in having this conversation. If Biden wins the 2024 election, Jake Tapper never mentions a word about this unless he's told to when they were trying to install Kamala Harris. That's the only time you would have heard him talk about this. But as I have said, this is why I believe Jake Tapper's doing this. Because we've heard reports that the Democrats are saying that Jake Tapper is working as a secret agent of MAGA and all of this. Bullshit. Jake Tapper is doing this to go after Trump. That's the point of this entire exercise. Don't fall for the smoke and mirrors bullshit about them acting concerned about what the Democrats covered up and everything like that. That's not what is going on here. Their intent is to use this to go after Trump. That's what they're going after. That's the long game here.
And he reared his head on occasion throughout that time, in 2017, 2019, 2020. What you list in that column you wrote, that prescient column, is a number of things that we saw in front of the cameras, or things that Peter Baker and others like yourself noted in columns. But what the people behind the scenes would say is, yes, he's old, but he is sharp as a tack and still running meetings and all of that. And what our reporting uncovered is that non-functioning Biden right around 2023, the summer of 2023, started rearing his head much more frequently and in much worse a way than previously. So what we discovered was it was a lot worse than what we saw going on. And look, in 2020, I saw him as old. I did not see him as non-functioning.
You are a fucking liar, dude. You are. Oh my God. Now I got to find the clip.
My grandpa was named Ambrose Finnegan as kitchen.
This is leading into the 2020 election. This was.
As kitchen table, I learned. I used to say, Joey, nobody's better than you, but you're no better than anybody else. Maybe it's the Scranton. I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Worried about whether they can make next month's mortgage payment. Well, it is what it is because he is who he is. That's why it is what it is.
We didn't know, guys. We didn't know.
So what we discovered was it was a lot worse than what we saw going on. And look, in 2020, I saw him as old. I did not see him as non-functioning.
Liar.
But by 2022, 2023, my coverage was, I did reflect the coverage that people had, the concerns about his aging, what's going on, et cetera. When the Her report came out, that is really an important demarcation, because that's the moment when somebody who's not in Biden's inner circle, and remember at this point in 2023, they start in this point in 2023, they
did his phone just go off? This is a trained professional. I gotta see that again.
Inner circle. And remember, at this point in 2023, they start in this point in 2023, they start sequestering Biden off, away from even his own cabinet secretaries. The Her report comes out, and this special counsel is like, look, this is what we saw 5 hours behind the scenes, and it was alarming.
It just seemed so obvious to me that what they were saying was complete nonsense. On that claim, when Biden said he had cancer, is there any possibility here that he's known all the time he's had prostate cancer?
Yes, he knew. This is, in my opinion, and I'm not saying that I have any information because I clearly don't, but in my opinion, Joe Biden has had cancer well before 2020, and he knew it. Absolutely, I believe that. Now, I'm not saying that I know anything. That's my guess, is that he had it well before 2020, and he knew it, and the people involved knew it. Barack Obama knew it. Big Mike knew it. Dr. Jill Biden knew it. The Democratic leadership knew it, but they didn't care because all that they were focused on is not Trump. not Trump. When TDS is in your mind, it completely breaks your brain of anything resembling common sense. And all of them have such a case of TDS that none of them are thinking properly.
It's almost impossible that he would have just developed this cancer in the last 100 days. It's almost certain that he had cancer while he was president. Now, whether or not he knew, we just don't know. So they either missed it, diagnosing the most powerful person in the world, or they did know it, or some people did know it, and they just
stop. How do you, the most powerful person in the world? Let's just go with that nonsensical tagline, because in theory, the president of the United States should be the most powerful person in the world. Joe Biden wasn't, but whatever. So yeah, we're just going to go with the idea that like they just missed it. They just missed the cancer of the most powerful man in the world. Stop.
didn't disclose it. And that's why Jake and I are actually, we sort of think of this as the first draft of this story, and we've continued to report after we submitted the draft.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, it's a fascinating scenario here, because I don't want to doubt for a moment that the timeline a recent president of the United States is giving about his health. However, everybody else is. And I think that what they're drawing the conclusion, as Ezekiel Emanuel said, it's highly likely he has had this prostate cancer, maybe for the entire term that he was serving as president, which may explain some of the cognitive issues. So it's a really important part of the story. And the timing of the release of the news that he has aggressive prostate cancer, stage 5, I think they said, metastasizing into his bones, and they released that right as your book is published. Now, I don't think you need to be the most elaborate conspiracy theorist to think, was it timed? In other words, did they know for a long time? And did they time the announcement simply to put a lid on you guys having a...
No, it's all because they're working together, Piers. Piers wants to be fake offended over somebody saying a mean word, but he doesn't want to connect obvious dots that are right in front of him, because I guess he just wants to play stupid right now.
Free run at his cognitive disabilities. Am I being a mad conspiracy theorist, or is there potential merit to this?
So we don't have any reporting that suggests that the announcement is anything other than how they've presented it. But that said, this is a White House, or this is a team now, they're not in the White House anymore, but the Biden team has not been transparent about his health. They have been misleading about his health. They have been gaslighting the country about his ability to do the job. We have cabinet secretaries in the book saying that by the end of the Biden presidency, they did not think that President Biden could be relied upon for the proverbial 2 a.m. phone call in the middle of the night with a national security emergency. So while I don't have any confirmation that your skepticism is correct, I certainly understand why people are being skeptical. And look, this goes beyond President Biden. The American people have been lied to about the health of their president as far back as George Washington. Most recently, obviously, with Ronald Reagan.
They're going to go after Trump with this. They're going to create a narrative that Donald Trump is not healthy and he's not fit for office, even though there's nothing to support this at all. They are going to go after Trump with this.
Having Alzheimer's towards the end of his presidency, JFK having Addison's disease, taking a medicine cabinet worth of drugs every day. There are lots of examples of how the American people are kept in the dark about these sorts of things. So, I mean, I think one of the big lessons for us is, as a public, is that the American people need to demand full transparency when it comes to the health of their presidents, because really right now, these health reports that the White House physicians give.
Do you see the case he's building right here? This is what he's doing. COVID was about Trump. Everything's about Trump. Everything they do is about Trump. Everything. This is not about Biden. People have to understand this.
You know, could it be? They said the last PSA test was 2014. Now, it just, to me, completely stretches credulity that a man who is president of the United States would not just have a simple PSA test. It's one of the easiest things to have in the world.
Why are you guys acting so fucking stupid about this? Everything was a lie, including the motherfucker you're interviewing, Piers. And the fact that you're insulting the audience like we don't know. Like, oh my God, how did this happen, guys? I just don't understand. Because it was all a fucking cover-up. And the guy that you're interviewing is part of the cover-up. And now it seems like you're part of the fucking cover-up, Piers.
Well, I was just going to say, like, all the cognitive issues that you brought up in your column in 2022, if that were a loved one of yours, you would take that person to a gerontologist or a neuroscientist. You would take them to some sort of doctor. What's going on here? This is not just aging. This is something else.
This is like painful to get through. I really expected Piers to go in at least a little bit on Jake Tapper. And he's done nothing to this point. This is terrible.
I taped it overnight, woke up at about 6 a.m.
This is such
watched
bullshit.
it. My 12-year-old daughter, she was then, came down, looked at the screen. This was 10 minutes in. Looked at the screen for about 20 seconds and said, Daddy, is that man asleep? About
Happened. This did not happen. Why would just randomly like ask that question? Kids don't even look at the fucking TV anymore. They're watching YouTube. Their face is buried in their iPad or their phone. They don't give a fuck what happens on TV.
about Joe Biden. I said, no, he's not. He's taking part in a debate as to who should be the next.
Like you gave a serious answer? No, he's not. He's taking place in a debate. He's actually going to be the like what?
President of the United States, and she burst out laughing. She said, but he's asleep. That was the eyes of a 12-year-old.
This didn't happen. This is a ridiculous story.
But Jill Biden, Jake, and her role in this, it just seems to me, I watched that, I thought quite pitiful appearance on The View to try and get ahead of your book, where, again, he just stumbled his way through quite a lot of rambling nonsense. And there she was next to him.
By the way, I'm so caught up on this. Did he say he taped it? Did Piers say he taped it?
I taped it over quite a lot of rambling nonsense. And there she was next to him. And I just, the number of wives who said to me, I would never put my husband through that. And you think of the magnifying glass of the presidency and all it brings. What do you think is going on there? Why would, she's not an actual doctor, I know that. But no why would his wife, given what he's been through in his life, losing his first wife, losing his baby daughter, losing his son Beau in his 40s, why would she want to put him through that kind of humiliation and potential huge stress that goes with that job on his health, which was clearly deteriorating?
So I think there are any number of reasons. I mean, we contain multitudes, right? So the first one is the belief that only Joe can beat Donald Trump, and Donald Trump poses an existential threat. So that drives a lot of the decision making. There's also the fact that she loves him dearly, and this is what he wants to do, so she's with him. There's also a third reason. She's in denial about what's going on, as is not uncommon for spouses whose husbands or wives are going through some deterioration. Fourth, and this is the less flattering explanation, she was very enamored of the lifestyle. It is fun being first lady. She was on three Vogue covers in 4 years. That's the same number that Michelle Obama was on in 8 years. Alex had reporting about people close to the White House or people close to the first lady saying that she had become Jackie Ode. She had really gotten in to what it's like to be first lady and the glamour and all that. And then fifth of all, there's also the Hunter factor, which is the fact that Hunter Biden was under investigation. And the best way that they could protect him was to keep the presidency so that they could protect him either through the Justice Department, which didn't go as well as they wanted, or through the pardon power, which they did. They ultimately pardoned him.
Fascinating. Alex, I mean, the other potential villain.
This is embarrassing for Piers. It really is. I was really hoping that there was going to be a little more here, and maybe there is, but this is really bad. You get treated worse by the mainstream media for saying a mean word than you do covering up for the president of the United States, who was never properly elected who cheated to be elected. They stole an election from Donald Trump. So let's start there. First and foremost, stolen election to get him into office. Secondly, he was never fit to be in office. And you have people covering that up. And you get treated worse for saying a no word, because words are mean, everybody. Words are the worst things that can ever happen. But covering up a presidential election and a presidential campaign and an auto pin as president, that's not bad. But saying a word, that's really bad, guys. That's really bad.
This is the system we have. It also means that if Keir Starmer were to show evidence of cognitive decline, whoever's his number two would be right there saying something's going on with Keir Starmer, and like the party would step in and force him to step down. No offense to Prime Minister Starmer. I'm just using it as an example, but there's no way it would happen. We need to do something in the United States. I don't think you could do anything and pass any.
This is now the lead into we've got to get Trump out of there. He's too old, guys. He doesn't have the mental capability.
Affect the current president. That's just not how our legislature works. But our personal view, Alex and myself, is that the health requirements and disclosures should be mandated by law and have to be presented under threat of perjury by the White House physician. Not just summaries of health records, but all the health records. This is the most powerful position in the world, elected position, and the public has every right to know what's going on with the health of their president. That's the only solution we can think of, because we're not going to adopt a parliamentary republic system, but I think that could be at least helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, great to talk to you guys, Jake, Alex. I love the book, Original Sin. You don't need me to promote it. It's a runaway bestseller, but I think you've done a great public service here. I think it had to be told, this story.
Fuck off with that nonsense, Piers. Good Lord, man. What an embarrassing interview with Fake Tapper. Unbelievable.